When I share this video, we'll be halfway through December, so hopefully you've already set your goals for 2025 because by the end of this video, you're gonna have a blueprint for achieving those goals, and it's probably a lot simpler than you may think. If you're watching this, it's possible that you didn't set goals in 2024. Maybe you didn't achieve your goals in 2024, or maybe you did and you're ready to take it to the next level, but you're kind of feeling stagnant. Whatever the case, we're gonna make it happen this year. And if you're wondering who I am and why you should listen to me, hi, I'm Marlena, and I've been through a lot of shit in my life. Just a few years ago, I was broke as a joke. I was tens of thousands of dollars in debt. I was in and out of toxic relationships. I hated my job. I hated my life. Like, I really hated my life, and I didn't think it would get any better. And after a lot of trial and error, I finally developed a framework that keeps me, and not only me, but also my clients, leveling up year after year after year. I've been a personal trainer for over 6 years now, helping my clients reach their fitness and wellness goals time after time by applying the same principles that I teach here on YouTube. I also have a degree in psychology, and I've been involved in neuroscience research, and I've been at this for almost a decade now, just learning about what it takes to create lasting change in your life. So what I'm sharing with you today is not just random advice, it's grounded in evidence and experience and the lessons I've learned from helping myself and others make meaningful change. So if you're ready to stop feeling stuck, you're ready to start making progress and really level up in 2025, stay with me, we're getting into it right now. First of all, last week I shared a video about why I'm ditching New Year's resolutions and why I'm setting aligned goals instead. And if you haven't watched that yet, I definitely do recommend doing that next because that's where I share detailed guidelines about how to set a goal. I even go into an example of how to use them. But at the end of this video, we're going to get into how to actually achieve those goals that you've set. And when it comes down to it, like I said, it's actually very simple. The problem is a lot of people are not willing to stick to the process long enough to see results. And the truth is, you don't need a million different strategies or a perfect plan. You just need to commit to showing up, even when it's hard and even when it's boring and even when you feel like giving up. But it does help to have a blueprint or a framework. So let's get into it. Let's say you already set your goals for 2025. If you haven't, that's okay. You can do that after this video. But once you do have your goals, step one is to break them down into smaller goals or smaller action steps that actually feel achievable to you. If you're an overthinker like myself, big goals can be super overwhelming. I'm like, I don't know where to start, and then I end up not doing anything. But if you break them down into these little checkpoints, they feel a lot more manageable and realistic and doable. So I'll give you an example. Let's say by the end of 2025, you want to quit your job and start a business that supports you and your family. That might sound totally out of reach right now. Maybe you don't have enough savings. Maybe you haven't even started a business or thought about how to do that. Okay, so how can we break it down? The first step might be brainstorming what kind of business you want to create. Is it going to be online? Is it brick and mortar? What industry? Why do you want to do this? Another step could be maybe budgeting and figuring out how much money you actually want to have saved before you quit your job to run your business full time. Like, how successful do you want your business to be before you can quit your 9 to 5? Again, breaking down the goal can help your brain focus on what's manageable instead of getting stuck in fear or overwhelm. When we're stuck in fear and anxiety, that is when we don't take action and we stay stuck. That is how we keep ourselves small. We don't want to do that anymore. If you're watching this video and you're here, it's because you're ready to level up. My videos do not attract people who are not ready to get to that next level of their lives. But again, the key is actually following through. So once you have this plan, you want to act on it and follow through with aligned action. Habits are where the magic happens. You can plan all you want, but if you don't have a routine in place, you don't take aligned action, you're not going anywhere. I'm sorry to break it to you. So you can ask yourself, what is one thing I can do every day to move me closer to my goals? Another question I love, you guys already know this if you've been with me for a while, what would my ideal self do? And if you don't know what I mean by that, you haven't been a part of my community for a bit, I'll explain it to you really quickly, but I do have a ton of content here and on Instagram that goes into that in a lot more detail. But essentially, the ideal self is the version of you that's already living your dream life. And if you show up as them every day, eventually you are going to become that version of you. So by asking yourself, what would that version of me do? You can follow in their footsteps and act on the response to that question and build momentum through your daily actions and habits. You can start building routines and sticking to them in a way that's aligned with that ideal self and with your goals. And one really important part of these routines is having check-ins, frequently checking in with yourself and tracking your progress. This is one, key to staying motivated, and two, key to figuring out what's working and what's not. I like to call this personal analytics. You guys know on social media, we track analytics to see what's working and what's not, what kind of content our audience likes, and what kind of content isn't really resonating. You can do this with yourself. Every week, I use my Rise workbook to analyze my week and then plan the upcoming week. This helps me refine my plan as I move forward and also celebrate my wins. So let's do another example. Let's say your goal is to incorporate weightlifting into your routine 3 times a week. Now you're doing a reflection and you notice that this past week you only lifted twice. So now why did that happen? Were you unmotivated? Was it a scheduling issue? And once you reflect, you can then use that data to refine. So maybe the upcoming week, if it was a scheduling issue, for example, you can put your workouts in your calendar and make sure that you get it done. If it was an issue with motivation, maybe you can get a trainer or an accountability buddy to keep you showing up. Now, one thing to keep in mind though is that tracking isn't just about what went wrong, but also celebrating our wins. We want to celebrate the things we accomplished and notice the good in our lives. So maybe you did show up 3 times last week and the week before and the week before. That is something to celebrate. That is something to be proud of. You're building healthy habits and sticking to them. You want to celebrate that progress. When you celebrate, it motivates you so much. You're like, I want to fucking keep doing this. Like, I'm so proud of myself. I'm so grateful that I have a healthy body that allows me to show up at the gym and follow through with my goals. And one more thing I will say about tracking before we move on to step number 4 is don't be too hard on yourself, right? This is not about judging yourself or about feeling guilty. It's just about progress and making little improvements over time without worrying about falling off track, right? And this brings me to step number 4, which is that life happens. Things do not always go as planned, and that's okay. The goal is progress, it's not perfection. So if you miss a step or you fall off track, don't let it derail you. Just get back on track, keep moving. I know it's easier said than done sometimes, believe me, I know that. But let me just remind you that you can reassess, right? You have the ability to adjust and keep moving forward. We all fall down, we all make mistakes. But the people who are successful are the ones that get the fuck back up. And now this, what I'm about to say, is something that I've said a million times and I'm going to keep saying it. You do want to make sure you're taking aligned action though. Progress is not just about productivity and getting up and doing something. It's about getting things done that are aligned with your goals and your ideal self. And again, this is why it's so important to have goals that align with your values. And having goals in general just like keeps you on track because you know exactly where you're going. I always use the analogy of the GPS. If you don't have an address, the GPS is not going to give you any directions. So if you don't have a goal, a destination, like how do you know if you're taking the right aligned action? But if you do have that plan, right, and you know what you're doing, you know where you're going, as long as you are taking aligned action as much as you can every day, you don't have to worry about falling off track. You can get right back on. So again, if you haven't watched that goal setting video, I will leave it up on the screen for you to watch right after this. It is super important to set those goals and use those guidelines to get you aligned with where you want to go. And let's move on to step number 5, which is to reflect regularly and recommit yourself to your goals on a regular basis. So like I said, at the end of each week, I take time to reflect and reassess and figure out what worked, what didn't, etc. And then I use those insights to get more aligned and improve week to week. You don't necessarily have to do this every week, though I highly recommend it, but sometimes even a monthly check-in with yourself is enough. When I do a monthly reflection, I tend to focus more on the bigger picture. So I'll ask myself questions, for example, like, is this goal still exciting to me? Does this goal still excite me, make me feel good? And if the answer is no, that's okay. Sometimes we outgrow things. Sometimes we realize we want different things. And this reflection and any reflection really gives you the chance to pivot before it feels too late. And I say feels because it's never really too late, but I do like to keep the sunk cost fallacy in mind. And catching these things early can definitely keep you from feeling like, oh, I've already invested and wasted too much time on this to give up. That's how you get stuck. That's how you get demotivated. So checking in often is an opportunity to sort of evaluate where you're at and make sure you're still moving in an aligned direction. And this actually brings me to one more point I want to mention, and I will go into more detail about about this in next week's video, but I'll say it very briefly. The way I designed the RISE framework is that your ideal self is the ideal self of your current self, if that makes sense. So what I mean by that is that once you reach your goals and you're living that dream life, your ideal self changes. There's a new version of the ideal self. The way I look at growth and leveling up is not as this destination where you fulfill your goals and you're done. It is a continuous evolution of the self. So if you want to see that video and learn about how to maintain momentum and keep leveling up in a way that makes you feel excited and aligned and fulfilled every single day, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on so you don't miss that video. As promised, here on the screen, I'm going to put up that goal setting video. Make sure you watch it next, especially if you haven't set aligned goals for 2025. This is going to be super helpful. And as always, if you found this video valuable, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with somebody who you want to level up with in 2025. Thank you so much for watching, and never forget that the journey of self-discovery and self-development is everlasting. So keep doing the inner work, keep taking aligned action, and until next time, I wish you all the very best in health and happiness. Bye.